Welcome back to Business Week on Arise News. Recently, some AgriTech, that's agricultural technology companies, have been in the spotlight for fraudulent conduct and business malpractice. As you can imagine, this is generating wider conversations around investor due diligence, startup insurance, regulations, and business models in the AgriTech space. One company, Thrive Agri, released its 2022 impact report highlighting it has produced over 1.5 million metric tons of grains with a network of over 514,000 smallholder farmers in Nigeria. Well, considering the impact of COVID-19 disruptions to food supplies on businesses and the investor market, Thrive Agri has actually remained one of the few companies in Nigeria to have successfully turned around a difficult situation with investors when COVID-19 disrupted operations in 2020. Joining me now to discuss future-proofing the Nigerian AgriTech ecosystem so that it remains a tool for economic empowerment is co-founder and CEO of Thrive Agri, Uka Eje. Uka holds a bachelor's degree in biochemistry from Covenant University and is an alumnus of Y Combinator, Alibaba Business School, Google Launchpad Accelerator, and the University of Leeds Future of Food program. Thanks for joining me on the program today, Uka Eje. Great to have you on the show. We've heard so much about Thrive Agri and the great work it's doing. Your impact report, and I read quite a lot of it, says you have disbursed around $100 million in loans to empower over 500,000 smallholder farmers from more than almost 3,000 communities. Are these loans actually performing well, given that these are smallholder farmers?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So I think, first of all, I'll answer that question to two things. First, it will be the time we spent in the agriculture system. I think in total we spent about a decade now. Just straight out of school in 2012, we started heavily in our presence in the agriculture sector with a lot of learnings, ups and downs, and quite a number of things with the smallholder farmers. And I think to be in the agriculture sector, you will need to pretty much understand the rural psychology of farmer. Why will the farmer not pay his loans? I think that's important. And over the years, we've been exposed to all of that. We've been burnt many times. And at the start of what we're doing, we're burnt, right? So, and staying there within that period of time and not getting discouraged at all, I think that was a lot of learning there. And also, time has also helped us to improve the operational model. And that leads me to the second point, the strength and the quality of our operational model. Right, giving farmers a loan is pretty. It takes a lot of hand-holding.
So how do you actually assess their credit worthiness?
Yeah, so that leads me to the second point. We don't just give farmers cash. We give farmers cash in form of input financing. Right. So think about it this way: the total amount of loans we give about a hectare of land, say 200,000 naira or 250,000 naira. So we give the farmers that loan by way of input finance. The value of that inputs
in form of equipment or raw materials,
seeds, fertilizer, agrochemicals. So these are the kind of things, crop protection products. These are the kind of things we value as in terms of monetary value. And then we do stage financing in ID1. We call it input distribution 1, 2, and 3, right? And then alongside we have contract staff who work with these farmers in their local communities. Where warehouses, we have over 450 warehouses spread across these rural communities. So the agents work directly with these farmers. We've been able to equip these agents with a proprietary technology that we call an AOS. AOS means Agriculture Operating System. The purpose for that is before the loan is given to the farmer, there's a field mapping of the land. Primarily that's for transparency. So it's not unclear who a farmer is. So this is more like our internal KYC model. Okay. And we try to know the farmer, try to know the field, and then one thing is very important, we put the farmer in a cluster. So there's a cluster-based process where the farmers get to cross-guarantee themselves, just in case incidences or maybe an act of God, which we try to prevent, because before a farmer is given a loan, we try to identify what could be a flood-prone region and to a certain degree, we've been able to control that.
Yeah.
And then and then the third thing, sorry to cut you.
Sure, go ahead.
The third thing is a farmer will default when they don't see substantial help, right? I mean, if they are not doing well with whatever support you claim to give them, they will definitely default.
Yeah, and this was going to be my follow-on question. Obviously, farmers are supplying into a market. So
Correct.
are you also working to track how well the goods are able to get in market, whether they're able to get customers for their goods? Because obviously that is a source of their creditworthiness, whether they'll get payback for what they're producing and growing.
Good question. So one of the things, I mean, what we're doing, and we're paying particular attention to, if a farmer is farming and producing a yield of 1.3 metric tons, that's about 13 bags of, say, maize or soya beans. He wants to inherently, I mean, he wants to scale up. He's a businessman, right? We need to be able to see the farmer as not just a regular hoe and cutlass person, but someone who's thinking about the money, right? And then we position ourselves as in the shoes of the farmer. So now that means we have to give the farmers extension services. Now, he is not...
What is an extension service?
An extension, thank you. An extension service is advisory, good advisory. I mean, many farmers used to use the seeds they use maybe for 3 years or 10 years, again, for a new production. And I think that has actually affected the yield for many crop. We have over 43 million farmers who pretty much don't have innovative approach for farming. So what we do is to make sure that I mean, they know what's the new thing that they're going to go to scale. So when they are, I mean, from our past records, it means to help farmers to produce more than 3 times the national yield. So when you see a farmer doing 1.3 metric tons, many times they're able to produce 40 bags, that's 4 tons, or maybe in some cases we've been able to see 60 bags.
Yeah, so I have to pick up on something you said. You said we have over 43 million farmers. You're referring to Nigeria.
Nigeria, I think.
Now, you're funding and empowering 500,000 smallholder farmers. Who is supporting and financing the others?
Okay, so many farmers are underfunded. In fact, that was one of the reasons why we entered this space, right?
The government, is there public sector support coming into them rather than just private sector?
I suppose that's for us, right?
Well, for the farmers themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big problem with agriculture in Nigeria. I think it is still underfunded. I want to believe the government has done quite a number of things with a lot of policy adjustment and policy formulation so far, but there's still a lot to be done. And I'm speaking today for over 500,000 smallholder farmers. And then think about a wide gap of 43 million smallholder farmers. At the point where they are funded, I mean, food security shouldn't be a problem in Nigeria.
But of course, we suffer from food price inflation all the time. So I want us to sort of shift to something that's been in the news a lot about fraud in AgriTech. And one of the things is that it is kind of dissuading investors from coming into that space, particularly if they don't have full transparency. Why are we just seeing a plethora of fraudulent entities coming into the AgriTech and agricultural value chain? What is it about the sector or the ecosystem that sort of encourages that type of activity? Okay,
thank you for the question. I think fraud by itself is not anything new.
Sure.
Right? I mean, if we look at even when the banking sector was maturing, you notice that there were a lot of what looked like not what it's supposed to represent, right? And I think if we want to be fair to agriculture, we'll see that it is a growing sector, and it is what we do with fraud that matters, right? That's why I was excited to be here, to be able to address some of these things, and not so that many investors are not dissuaded, primarily, and then many investors will start beginning to pay attention to the sector. So at the time when you see things like this, it means that attention should be paid to the sector, and then we should crave to know a lot more, as opposed to unverified data and information that is just thrown.
So what can we do to strengthen transparency and ensure that those who are doing legitimate business are able to raise funds and tell their story in a credible way?
Okay, I think one of the things that I was saying already is we also have to see how we can foster collaboration. We also have to ask the right questions, right? If companies come up to an investor, I mean, do they have product market fit? I mean, you are building for a farmer, for agriculture, you want to be sure that they don't appear to build for a sector that is not agriculture, and the product cannot be related, cannot solve an agricultural problem. And I think that there are a bunch of questions that should be asked when you want to invest in an agriculture sector. It's not like investing in the financial service sector. And then I think that that's pretty important. And also, quite a number of ecosystem support is important in growing this. When we started, we were lucky to have a company called Ventures Platform helping us to scale. And that has helped us to strengthen our foot in the ground. And we need to also, I mean, for investors, we need to also be careful, also be attentive to know what's the strength of operations of the business. Do they have an actual operations beyond the operational model, or which is very important, what's the strength? Are they really actively doing what they say they are doing, right? So this means that in the communities that we are present so far, we currently have activities in over 2,000 communities where our work is present. So, I mean, we need to be able to verify these things. We need to be able to verify this data and then make a decision from there.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions for you. First of all, looking at the potential, you know, Nigeria is really meant to be a food basket. Correct. Do you see opportunities with the technology you're putting in place to help farmers scale for export to the West Africa region? And do you think initiatives like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will actually enhance the work you're doing with smallholder farmers?
Oh, yes. I see a lot of opportunities. And I think I'll just broaden the mind of our listeners, especially people who are investors and people who are just interested in the sector, right? I mean, as we were taught in school, agriculture is beyond a man holding hooves and cutlass, right?
Yeah.
It's a growing sector. I mean, as I said, a lot of attention needs to be paid to it. So before the primary production, there is the pre-primary production, which is the production of seeds, agrochemicals, crop protection products for the smallholder farmers, right? And then after that, there's the primary production, which we are heavily doing, and also after that is the post-primary production, which is there's the value-added services, adding value to the crop that is being produced, and also there's now export of these goods. So if you follow the line of this, at the point where there's heavy involvement with participators there, because, if a lot of people are in that pre-primary production area, then you notice that there are a lot of farmers who have better seeds to farm, right? So if the farmers produce a lot more, then you notice that the off-takers have a lot of supply, right? And then that would lead to a lot of exports within Africa.
And what technologies are you deploying? What types of technologies? Of course, we're talking a lot about artificial intelligence. What technologies do you see enhancing the value of what you do and the value that is being delivered to the farmers?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. So we've been able to build a proprietary technology called an agricultural operating system.
An agricultural rating system?
Agricultural operating system.
That's the AOS you referred to earlier,
yes.
Okay.
So the purpose of the AOS, when we started out, we were just using Excel sheets, some data kits to be able to capture information of farmers. And we wanted to be able to pretty much understand where our farmers were, how to be able to give best services. We wanted to be able to build visibility for for the solutions we're providing, especially for the financial service companies that we're working with. So we built the AOS to solve the problem of transparency and visibility, so that every data is captured, the farmer's land is mapped, and also the farmer's location, KYC, they can see their faces, and every stage of the process, the operational process is captured at the point where input distribution is done, ID1, ID2, ID3, that's input distribution, is given to the farmers. All of them is captured by the AOS. Primarily, you see the AOS as an operational tool, right, that follows through the agriculture, the primary production process, down to when the farmer sells their goods, stores in the warehouse and sells their goods. So that's the technology we've built. And primarily, it has helped efficiency, and it has helped us to be able to organize what payments can look like for the farmers. And the AOS also has been the first point of financial inclusion for these farmers, because that has been a problem. Many farmers are not financially included. And so what we've been able to do was, in the rural communities where they are, we've been able to issue virtual cards to them so that they can be able to access their access cash for their goods for when they
and of course, the financial inclusion piece means that sectors like agriculture and fintech and even clean tech for storage, will obviously be very important in terms of collaboration. It's been a very fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about Thrive Agri and what it's doing in the AgriTech space. I've been speaking to Uka Eje, CEO of AgriTech company Thrive Agri.